the airstrikes were intensified in the location overnight.
As international pressure mounts on Israel to reduce civilian casualties and with growing calls for a ceasefire, the US Secretary of Defense has returned to Israel. Lloyd Austin has met his Israeli counterpart and is also due to talk to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu with a focus on how Israel plans to move to the next phase of the war. Well, the UN Security Council is expected to vote on Monday on a resolution calling for an urgent and sustainable cessation of hostilities. The US blocked a previous resolution that called for a humanitarian ceasefire. Well, over the weekend, the UK, France and Germany stepped up calls for a pause in the fighting. Meanwhile, conditions in Gaza keep getting worse. Supplies are arriving, but as you can see in these pictures, trucks crossing from Egypt are very quickly surrounded by desperate people. Aid agencies are reporting widespread starvation and desperation as the fighting continues. Well, let's cross live now and speak to Juliette, Touma, the Director of Communications at the UN Relief and Works Agency, one of the United Nations' largest programmes. Juliette, thank you for taking the time to speak to us here on BBC News. If you can give us an understanding of how desperate the situation is right now in certain areas of Gaza.
Well, we've passed the 70 days since the start of what has been a very, very brutal war and a very tight siege. And the longer this war continues, the more desperate people become and the more hungry they become, and the more they lose any hope for a prospect that this comes to an end, which it should come to an end.
There are aid trucks getting into Gaza, but tell me, how much they are making a difference, because we're seeing pictures of trucks coming in from Egypt and many, many people surrounding them out of sheer desperation.
Yes, exactly. People are, like I said, hungry and desperate. And we have witnessed this firsthand when these aid trucks come in. As important as this is, people are actually coming on the trucks and they grab the food and they start eating it then and there. It is just one indicator to how bad the situation has become.
And of course, we are also seeing a great many number of people in internally displaced people sheltering in UNRWA facilities in areas like Khan Yunis and the Rafah areas. What conditions are they living in right now, and how safe are those areas?
Well, first of all, we've seen an increase in the number of people who continue to come to our facilities. 1.4 million people now live in these UNRWA facilities. I visited one myself just recently in Khan Yunis, and it's just appalling. People are literally on top of each other. All they're asking for is a sip of water, a piece of bread. People continue to come to these shelters. We are seeing diseases that are starting to spread. It's getting cold, it's rainy. I saw children still walking around with their summer shoes, with summer clothes. There's not enough blankets, there's not enough mattresses. And we will continue to see this increase. And are they safe? No, they're not safe. UNRWA recorded 150 hits on our facilities, which should be protected in accordance to international law.
We've spoken earlier on to we heard from the spokesperson for the Israeli government, Elon Levy, and he talked about the fact that the Israeli government says it's trying to protect civilians as much as possible in Gaza. What reaction do you have to that?
Look, we continue to lose colleagues. The latest update that I just got before coming to speak to you is that 136 of our colleagues at UNRWA have been killed. The number of civilians who are killed, among them many, many women and children, according to reports, 70% of those killed are women and children, are very, very high. And much more needs to be done to protect civilians and to spare civilian infrastructure from attacks or from being hit during this war.
Juliette, it's good to talk to you. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us.